That's gonna be
Oh,
ugly.
that's gonna
It's
be-
gonna be ugly.
I know.
All right, good evening. I want to call the meeting to order. I want to thank you for all attending tonight. I'm going to call Reverend Teddy Lawson to perform our invocation. If you'll come to the podium, please. Thank you.
Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Our Father and our God, we want to thank you for the blessings and for the beauty of this day. We want to also thank you, Father, tonight for you being a God of great knowledge and wisdom, and the God that you impart into your creation knowledge and wisdom in order for us and enables us to make decisions that will be for the good of our county and our community. We thank you for our elected officials and for the preparation and the plannings that they do. We ask your blessings upon them and their families as they continue to look to you for divine guidance. We pray and thank you for those who have come to show interest tonight. And God, we pray that we would carry out this meeting tonight on anything that's on the agenda in an orderly fashion. So God, we pray that you'd have your way and your will in this decisions and discussions that would be made tonight. Again, for this county and community, but most of all, God, for your glory. And for Father, for what you do, we'll praise you for it in Jesus' name. And all God's people said,
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Lawson. All right, at this time, I'm going to read the ethics statement. In accordance with the State Government Ethics Act, it is the duty of every board member to avoid both conflicts of interest and appearances of conflict. Does any board member have any known conflict of interest or appearance of conflict with respect to any matter coming before the board? If so, please identify the conflict and refrain from any undue participation in the particular matter involved. So are there any conflicts at this time? Okay. All right, at this time I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I make that motion.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Gatewood, second by Commissioner Mims. All in favor, please say aye and show your right hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, at this time we're going to enter into a public hearing, number one for tonight, the Anson County Comprehensive Transportation Plan. So I'll entertain a motion to enter into a public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Little Reed, second by Commissioner Gatewood. All right, at this time, we have a one person to sign up on the public hearing sheet for the DOT Comprehensive Transportation Plan, Miss Laura Laney.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you to correspond with the Comprehensive Transportation Plan with these changes in greenways and bicycles and roadways. There's going to be runoff, there's going to be erosion, and there's a part of that is going to be noise pollution for folks involved. So I think it would be unrealistic to adopt the Comprehensive Transportation Plan without having at least some acknowledgement that to go along with that needs to be some kind of environmental design, not just for aesthetics but and environmental purposes, but also again to protect the investment that we're making in the roadways through runoff and erosion control. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Laney. Okay, that's all that had signed up to speak. At this time, I'll open the floor. Is there anyone else that would like to speak that maybe did not sign up? Okay. Hearing none, are there any commissioners concerned? Okay. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Or,
Second.
Are we gonna hear from DOT?
DOT had already presented the CTP at their last meeting. So,
If they wanna say more.
yeah. So,
I just bring up one thing, if you don't mind.
motion on the floor by Commissioner Mims, I think.
I'll just pull it back.
And again, this is a plan, this does not have any money tied to it. When we get to specific project planning, and this is where you're speaking to, we have categorical exclusions, we have environmental assessments, and we have environmental impact statements. Likely, things like the Wadesboro bypass will go through an extensive environmental impact statement or an EIS. that will take several years to document and make sure that we don't we upset the least environmentally impactful ways to go regarding human and natural environments, all the endangered species and such. Things like runoff will also be addressed. Things like noise pollution for big projects like that will also be addressed. So I'm glad she brought it up. This is something that we did do in the document that will be published at the end of this study.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for addressing that. Any other questions for DOT while they're...
I was going to ask something similar, so I'm good with their answer.
Okay. All right. Thank you. If there's no other comments for the public hearing, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Mims, second by Commissioner Gatewood. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. At this time, do we need to take action on the CTP plan that has been presented? So I'll entertain a motion to approve the CTP plan or the resolution.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Mims, second by Commissioner Gatewood, in favor of adopting the CTP resolution. Any other discussion? No other discussion. Please signal by raising your right hand, saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? All right. Motion passes. All right. Thank you. Okay, we'll move into our number 2 public hearing for the night. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to enter into the public hearing in reference to countywide zoning.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion by Commissioner Mims, second by Commissioner Woodburn. I don't know if we have to vote on that or not. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, now we're in the public hearing for countywide zoning. And we have 3 people that have signed up, so I'll acknowledge them first. Ms. Laura Laney again.
Good evening. Thank you again for letting me share some thoughts on this particular topic. My parents always taught me when I start a conversation to say what I like first and then what I dislike, so I'm going to talk about what I like first. And I am in favor of zoning protections. I think they offer, it's not so much what you can't do with your land, but it's what others can't do around you, and I think it offers us equal protection and clear accountability and transparency for all citizens in Anson County, so that all zoning decisions would be less arbitrary. So I do like that. I really like the landscape design or incorporation into the zoning ordinance packet. I would just ask that it be streamlined to only include trees and shrubs that are native species, because they're most designed to do well in our area, handle the conditions, provide the best erosion support and air quality, and they're just the best choice. They're in the less maintenance because they're designed to thrive here anyway. I'm sure Brown Creek Soil and Water or 4-H could help streamline that to just a native species list. My main concern is that when I look at the map, and I brought a copy of it, I'm from White Store, okay, it's just for full disclosure. Most of the White Store district is RE5, which is the rural, not low density. And when I get to page 59 of the document and start looking at the permitted uses for RE5 and some of the other residential districts, one of them includes the landfills. Landfills 10 acres and more, and landfills 10 acres and less. And we don't need any more landfills in Anson County. We've already got plenty. So I don't see any reason why there needs to even be a designation for landfills greater than 10 acres or landfills less than 10 acres in any area aside from high industrial where the one is already designated. So I mean, I just don't want Anson County to become a landfill, and I especially don't want, I would say I don't want White Store, but it's not even just about White Store. It's about all these green spaces on this map. It just doesn't need to happen. If there's going to need to be a landfill, then it needs to be off of here, and it needs to come up as public hearing and public discussion later on. And then my last concern was that the current, it appears to me, and I could be wrong, but based on the last commissioner meeting, that the current zoning process is an internal review committee, And because this document charges you as the Board of Commissioners with the administration of this new zoning ordinance if it passes, I would just ask that you consider reworking that to be more of a citizen-based board with at least 3 members, with term limits and clear documentation of that people would recuse themselves if there was any kind of conflict of interest. I think it would also be worthwhile to, to do the cost to implement that, especially with the quasi-judicial requirements for legal counsel. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Laney. Mr. Charles McGinnis.
I'd like to pass this out to everyone.
Okay, all right, thank you, JD. How you doing?
Thank you, sir. Good to see you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. This is an important document that's going to affect this county for years to come. And I want to start with my request. My request is, this zoning document is allowing companies and corporations to legally bring hazardous waste of all types into our county, putting our health, safety, and quality of life at risk. How can we prevent it? By adding to our zoning document a few additional references that forbid low-level nuclear waste, chemical waste, bioremediation, human waste processing, and toxic waste from being processed, stored, or dumped in our county. I found this, I got confused about the ordinance, exclusionary ordinance. There's a dangerous misunderstanding that is influencing the composition of our zoning document. It is a mistaken assumption that will allow an invasion of corporate polluters to profit from the unconstrained and irreversible exploitation of our county. This misunderstanding is about exclusionary zoning. The belief that the state of North Carolina will not allow exclusionary zoning in our countywide zoning document. After digging for nearly a week, no statutes or references to exclusionary zoning have been uncovered. At present, there are no statutes in North Carolina that explicitly prohibit exclusionary zoning. While searching for evidence that one may exist, the phrase "North Carolina does not have any exclusionary zoning laws" appeared repeatedly. Conclusion: North Carolina does not have any regulation, laws, or statutes that prohibit exclusionary zoning. Statute 104E-6.2 was brought to my attention as such a rule. It is a section of North Carolina Radiation Protection Act that deals with these siting and regulation of low-level radioactive waste facilities. Here's the key points. The state of North Carolina wants to maintain control over the management of low radioactive disposal facilities. Local governments cannot regulate these facilities through ordinance or zoning restrictions. If a local ordinance interferes with the establishment or operation of a facility approved by the state, the operator can petition the Secretary of the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services to preempt that local ordinance. The Secretary will hold a public hearing to decide if the state should override the local ordinance. People can participate in the hearing and submit written comments. The Secretary can only override a local ordinance if 5 specific conditions are met. These conditions include considering the needs of the state, permits being applied, and the facility not posing an unreasonable health risk. And I'm going to come back to that one in a minute. And finally, the Secretary's decision can be appealed in court by pretty much anybody. In summary, there is no identifiable limitations in that statute on exclusionary zoning. It only says that the Secretary of North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services can preempt it if the operator, a corporate polluter in our case, files a petition. Going back to section 104E 6.2D, the landfill currently emits tons of highly toxic compounds. They are raining down on us every day. Adding low-level nuclear waste will only increase the unreasonable health risk we already face. Section 104E-6.2 does not prevent us from putting exclusionary zoning ordinances in our zoning document. If this zoning document is approved in its current form, we will face a challenging future. Recent news articles have indicated that the lithium mining project in Gaston County is still progressing. Furthermore, there is a possibility of a new lithium mining project in the Baden area. Lithium mining produces a large amount of toxic waste, low-level radioactive waste. If this waste is disposed of in our landfill, it will be spewed out to Candlestick and blanket this county with toxic waste that has a half-life of hundreds of thousands of years. As you know, it's the responsibility of commissioners to prioritize the health and safety of the community over the interest of a company or corporation. The approval of this document in its current form will put our county and communities at risk. Please implement the few modifications necessary to prevent this from happening. Please include language in our zoning document that halts the expansion of current waste facilities and forbids toxic waste from ever being created, processed, or dumped in our county. As an addendum, I know there's, in the zoning document, I know there's a process to add, change, and modify. But from my view, it would be the easiest process would be to just put these in there before it's approved. It's quick and easy, just a few lines. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. McGinnis.
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Mr. McGinnis, do you want that entered into the record?
I'm sorry.
Do you want that entered into the record?
I don't understand.
Do you want the document entered into the record?
Oh, no, I was talking to these guys. I'm good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. McGinnis. Next, we have Dawn McGinnis.
She was gonna get my back.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna stop it at 3 minutes, I was gonna be.
That gives him his time that
That's
he
right.
took.
That's right. So, okay. Thank you for that. All right. That is all that have signed up to speak. I'll open the floor. Are there any other? Oh, yeah. I'll open the floor. I can't remember. Borgstead, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
My name is Christopher Borgstead.
Yeah.
And I had a whole presentation that I was getting ready, but then I had to take a little old lady to the hospital, and actually showed up late. Sorry about that. So I'm here from Texas, from Austin, Texas specifically, and they are experiencing the backside of zoning. When any kind of change requires everybody in the county to kind of agree that that change is good, you don't get change. What you do is you get land bankers. You get them buying up the commercial space, you get them buying up stuff, they let it rot. And then once necessity arrives, they come in and they develop. And they push it through the zoning board. They woo the members. And I mean, right now Austin's got a homelessness problem, 10,000 people and rising. Charlotte's not too far behind. Charlotte, you can't change the zoning without putting big old placards out and facing the opposition. And so the only people that do it are the ones that can actually weather the opposition. They're the big developers. Individuals, you know, your kids, your family, they can't face down the opposition that they get. It's very well reasoned, always very well reasoned. And yet the outcome is no economic growth, the kids move away, the county dies. And all that's left is well, the people that can't escape. I'm watching that happen in some places, so, just watch out. What y'all are doing here is dangerous, is what I'm saying, and requires due consideration. Right now there are federal grants out from the Biden administration looking for a way to go that's different from restrictive or Euclidean zoning. And, just saying, maybe take advantage of that. Maybe take a look at what happens when, and I wasn't going to go into it, but the racial history. Originally, zoning was done to segregate the races. Later, it was done to pry the lower classes, which correlated, out of these areas like East Austin. Now, the number of Black Americans living in Austin is like, and it's because, this is a system that's not accessible to the everyday person. I mean, 54 pages? And, someone who just kind of comes into a piece of land, but it's, in a good spot and they want to do something with it, well, how do they know how? Without going to a developer and selling it off until all that's owned here is corporate. So be careful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Borgstead. Okay, anyone else from the public? Yes, sir.
How you doing?
Good.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, my name is Otis Kerry Rogers Jr. Most people call me Kerry. And just coming again, I came last year concerning this issue. And it's my proposal to reject what we have. One of the main things that we talked about last year was that we're going to, what I believe or thought was going to happen, because the zoning to me did not apply to this county. It appeared that someone else did it that was applicable to their county and where they were from, but we already had a plan, and that's one thing I didn't understand was in 2005, I believe it was 2005, there was a zoning, because part of the county was zoned, and especially over there in White Store Road. But so, in my opinion, that this is not an improvement, but it does the same as what we talked about last year. It discourages and stifles small businesses, especially a lot of small businesses start in the rural area. Even today, I would go to a welding shop in a rural area. I would go to an automobile body shop in a rural area. I go to a car repair in a rural area. I don't go to a barber shop in a rural area, but I don't think it should be a big problem with that. According to the RA5 zoning, that's prohibited. And we find also that many of these rural-based businesses have to get a special use permit, and they have to go to the Board of Adjusters or to commissioners yourselves. And it just seems to me it's just, again, government just trying to get into my life. And one of the reasons why I moved out in a rural area, I understand we have permits and building permits and things like that, but there are things that in this particular zoning, it just, to me, does not make sense according to what the landfill. Again, that's a major issue. It's like, as a board, it was not paid attention to, because we said the same thing last year, and we're saying the same thing again. A landfill can go into RA5 and other rural districts and housing districts. That makes no sense. Again, I don't know if Waste Connections is part of any of these boards here, and makes no sense. So we already know the foul smells is a great nuisance. The heavy truck traffic. For the last several weeks, we've been talking about a flea market and all what that can do. But this is just as bad in terms of, I'm not about the landfill. So I don't even know if flea market was on the last one, but I noticed it's on this one very clearly. Also, again, there's a lot of reports investigating judgment on our chicken farms, and it's as if everybody keeps their eyes closed, ears is a big nuisance. Especially if I'm at my land first, they shouldn't just come in and do what they want to do. Chicken farms, and I know there was a moratorium, I don't know if it was in the 90s, on the pig farms. I don't know where that's at, whatever. We see all the reports that's in the eastern part of the state and what it does in destroying communities. If I had a chicken farm next to me, land value is going to go down. Who wants to go outside with a bunch of flies and things of that nature? So we say, well, this is exempt. Well, what's the point of having zoning if I can exempt things, a lot of different things that are dangerous to the community? So you as a board need to think. I thought, again, you all are going to go back and look at 2005 as something you already had. But I don't really see many changes here. So as my proposal, we got to get it right. And I'm sorry to say, out of all due respect, the current zoning is not right. And just, I'm about to get 5 seconds. And here, page 65, where it talks about the landfill, I have it highlighted right here. Go back and look at it. And I don't like this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Elijah Rogers, and I just wanted to say that in the zoning, there's a few things that are prohibited, like small electronic repair shops and other. We have printing shops and offices. I think these things should have an option, like under a SA or SB, or even a D. I don't think they should just be flat out not allowed. Also, I also believe that the landfill should not be allowed, especially when a printing shop is completely not allowed. That's all I'd say.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Yes, sir, gentleman in the back.
Good evening. My name is Leek Little, and I'm here to support zoning for the county of Anson. We need this radically. We need change. We shouldn't be afraid of things that haven't happened yet, because we've lost or are losing 15% of our population. The things that we're scared of here about zoning haven't happened. What's happening is we're having a collapse, both in the economic future of our county and in the demographics. If we're going to help ourselves and help our future generations, we need the certainty and the structure and the process, the due process to appeal anything we don't like today about the proposed zoning plan that we're being asked, or the commissioners are being asked, to approve. I would submit that by submitting to a process that's fair and that's equitable and that has the allowances to not just nitpick, but to change things through a special use permit program, the political process, all of us working together to avoid the worst ills that this might open the door to, and close those doors one by one. That the only way we move forward is not by denying it, but by embracing it, entering into the future with change and a structure that people from the outside can view us as a mature, responsible partner to any development that can happen. We're dying on the vine here. We're withering in the sun. We need to be nurturing ourselves, and the structure and the program that this gives us is a good foundation. That's really all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Any other comments from the public? Yes, sir.
I'd like to make one.
Okay. If you will, address the podium, please. We can hear you, but some of the citizens listening online may not.
Yeah, I'd like to make one comment on the zoning. I think we need zoning in Hanson County also. But the other thing that I think we need is we need a planning commission and a zoning board. We don't need one man making all the decisions. This one man has too much power, and we need to have joint decisions made, not just one fella. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Any other comments from the public? Yes, ma'am.
I took the time to print the pages of our concern. It's pages 61 through 68. And you can hand these out. And I highlighted what's blank is what we cannot do, and then there's like different other things that we have to get permission for, unless if it's an X. And I'm a person who likes to do a whole lot of things, and I don't want to be stifled. Like, I want to have a small little store out in the country. I want to have a bakery, and I want to be able to do the my imaginations, even having different things like an agri-therapy center out where we are. And I don't want to be like stopped from what I want to do because of limitations and say, well, you can't do that here, and I'll be like, oh no. So that's just my concern.
Thank you. Can I get your name? You didn't state your name. I'm sorry.
Carlene Rogers.
Carlene Rogers.
Yes, Carlene Rogers, Rodgers.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
At the appropriate time, I believe Mr. Rogers would like to put his stuff on the record with the clerk, if he could just submit it to the clerk.
All right. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm John Sykes. I'm here in favor of zoning, especially in the Burnsville area. We have 2 shooting ranges that have come up in Burnsville. We've got talk of another. We've got a rodeo that has come in. We've got several things that have come in the community that the community is very concerned about, and we have no voice now. This will give us a voice. We need the voice in the county, and we'd very much appreciate your seeing that we get this protection, where will give us a voice in saying what comes to our community and how it's dealt with.
Thank you, Mr. Sykes. Mr. Rogers, if you would like to present your document to the clerk, you can at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Well, yes, but I to be honest with you, I only brought one.
Oh.
So
if you want, yeah, I was going to say, if you want to make a copy, we can get a copy to her. That's fine. So.
Oh, let me just give it.
We can do a copy tonight, or if you want to make a copy and provide one to her, however you want to do it.
I'll do I can email it to you.
And that's fine. Yeah.
I'll do that.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
She'll hold that up and put that in the record later.
You want me to hold it up?
No.
Oh, sorry, no. She'll hold it open. I'm sorry.
Okay, it's not a problem. I'll just email it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other public comments? Okay, hear none. Any commissioners have any concern to address at this time? Okay, hear none. I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing. But do we need to hear from Mr. Jeff Young? Does anybody have any questions? So, Mr. Jeff Young, who helped assist in drafting this zoning document, is here. If there's any questions for Mr. Young.
Could I ask Mr. Young if you could let the concerned citizens about small business in the country know of the 2 provisions that we've allowed for small businesses in rural zoning? If you could brief them on that.
Yes, sir, I'd be glad to. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Sossaman, and Mr. Forbes. I'm glad to be here and for the project to get to this point that we started about, that I have been involved with for about 10 months. As you know, a majority of what's in the ordinance is a result of that extensive process that you went through a few years ago, 4 or 5, to create an ordinance and have it up to date and go through a public involvement process. And you've done a commendable job of that. And I have made notes as well about the things that have been brought up, which have all been very well thought out concerns, some of which have been addressed. As I went through the process with Mr. Newton and Mr. Sossman, there were interests in home occupations, and which tend to be smaller and contained within a home. And there was interest beyond that in businesses that are based in a home but may have multiple buildings as well as equipment involved in the business that are well beyond the bounds and the walls of the home. So I researched that and included a provision for home occupations and for what we have referred to as rural home-based business. Now, there's not a particular size necessarily limited in doing that, and that would create more opportunities. I also heard comments in the latter part of the public hearing about needing a voice, citizens needing an opportunity to respond, and that's how these 2 business opportunities have been written up to this point. I should say now, I don't know of any zoning ordinance anywhere that has stayed like it was when it was first adopted for very long. That's why more and more, the more an area grows, the more public hearings you have under having to do with the zoning ordinance. So the future holds endless opportunities to make changes, update, and make it fit better to the community. Would you like more on that?
Well, no, I appreciate what it is one reason why this zoning has taken a little longer than we wish it would had is because the previous contractors that we had paid to consult us with zoning weren't interested in giving us these home occupations and these rural businesses, and that's why we requested to bring Mr. Young in to add that opportunity. And like the young lady that wanted to maybe have some bakery goods at her house, it would certainly be allowed in what we've got here. And not only will we allow it, I would say we would want to promote it. So I think we're maybe going in a different direction than some people think that we are. And I feel like in the country, and I live on a farm, that's what antique stores, things like that. I mean, that's what we want. And Mr. Young came up with the 2 definitions. Some people in different states call cottage industry, similar concept, home business, home occupation, rural business. I agree with y'all. I think maybe there could be some things in there that you might have missed that allow a certain number of employees, family members, non-family members. It's kind of defined in there. I feel like we've got a pretty good addition to what the original zoning was seemingly heading towards about 3 or 4 months ago. So I appreciate that you brought that up.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Can you discuss the landfills, the 10 or more they were talking about?
The state takes a primary role in regulating environmental issues. Landfills are are not done without a state permit. And that's a fairly long, involved process with multiple reviews, not a lot different than what the gentleman from DOT expressed that road projects go through. And the same thing is true of any facility that stores, transfers, transports any kind of hazardous material. And hazardous under the statutes refers to a lot of different things, including radioactive material, including petroleum products and waste products and other things. So any new landfill has to go through both a state and a local process. A zoning ordinance related to those things that sometimes are referred to as locally undesirable land uses or objectionable uses. If there are no regulations in place, then it's the Wild West. It's open to whatever laws exist or do not exist. And the approach that the zoning takes to regulating those is to apply restrictions and to create a process that developments of that sort have to go through. Number one, to allow public input. Number two, to apply stringent standards so that facilities are developed to minimize any possible environmental damage of any kind. That doesn't mean they don't smell. It doesn't mean they don't get developed. I believe I can't address landfills throughout the state, but we have a very large, very tall landfill in Cabarrus County that has a lot of waste of different kinds from the entire Charlotte region, which is, depending on who you talk to, 11 counties or more. So obviously it's an issue that we're all concerned about, and the standards that are in the ordinance now, as it's drafted and proposed, can become more or less stringent over time according to what citizens and elected officials want to do with it. But you start somewhere.
That's correct. Yes, sir, Mr. Woodburn.
Okay, thank you. And that's along that same line, in addition to landfills, is the hazardous waste that's referenced in the zoning ordinance. And I'll just speak to the landfill that we currently have. And I know that over the years, when they're looking at adding anything that's hazardous to their to the contract, they've come to us and asked about that. And last thing I believe was don't quote me on this, but I think it was coal ash, and we pretty much told them no, we didn't want coal ash. That's when Duke Power was looking for areas to take the coal ash that they had to get rid of, and I think the Anson County landfill was identified as a landfill that was suitable to take that coal ash. And basically we as a Board of Commissioners said no. We had the director of the landfill, in other words, he had to put that in his contract. We would not accept that. He wasn't very happy about it, but that's what we asked. So my thinking is the zoning ordinance will not change anything that's as far as what the landfill wants to accept. We've got to approve what they want to add to it. Just because something's referenced in the zoning ordinance, say, okay, as of the date that it's approved, we can go out and start bringing this stuff in. They still have to go through the same process that we're doing before. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. The process is defined under state law.
Okay. Thank you.
Their contract specifically states no hazardous waste, no toxic waste allowed, and zoning does not override their contract.
I just want to make sure I want to hear it.
Their contract also states there will be no other landfills in Anson County. In other words, they are the monopoly of landfills in Anson County. So no matter if it's allowed on a 10-acre site or not, the Waste Connections will not allow it according to their contract. If we allow it, we're in breach of our contract with Waste Connections. Thank you.
And one thing I would add is on Mr. McGinnis' concern of lithium, the contract currently does not allow lithium in Waste Connections landfill in Anson County. And the reason that I would be concerned about that as well is they're opening a new big, pretty good sized lithium battery plant in Lincolnton, which is not that far from here. But our current contract with Waste Connections does not allow. I think it's on very early in their contract says no lithium. So that was something that we looked into.
Mr. Young, can you explain the exempt status of a poultry farm and why we're not allowed to say no more poultry farms?
Again, and Mr. Forbes is the lawyer.
The state said it, so that's right.
Exactly.
The state regulates that.
The county has no authority to regulate a bona fide farm. Bona fide farms are exempt from zoning ordinances. That is how the state. That's correct.
That's how the state has preempted us from being able to regulate that. To whether it's and they also identify what a farm is.
Correct.
You know, it's not the green acres that we grew up with.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any other question? Yes, sir, Mr.
Mr. Chairman, not a question, but I know it came up from Mr. Thomas when he said there's something that was needed relative to an enforcement or amendment process. So Mr. Young could explain that once this is adopted and if a citizen wants to come and change their zoning to something else that would allow them to develop something, what process do they go through?
Any owner of a piece of property, or even someone who's not an owner, can request a zoning change. And the purpose of anyone being allowed to do that is so that citizens can initiate things. Zoning doesn't have to be initiated just by a company, a corporation, a developer, or an elected board. But the process is the same for everyone. There's an application and a public hearing and a vote. And so there is an opportunity to voice support or opposition. And it's one of the more democratic things that exists.
Yes, sir, you have a question. And I'll get you, Mr. McGinnis, in just a second.
What for term limits for the board? Is there going to be term limits, or are they once a county commissioner's added to the board, or are they on there for like whatever? Can they be on there like for 30 years? Or?
I think that gives.
I can get with you separately after this, and I can look that up in the ordinance. That's 240 some pages. I can't remember all of it. But normally there are term limits. Usually 2 terms for a period of 3 years each.
I think I recall reading in the document that the Board of Commissioners will set those terms for any committee, like the Planning Board or Board of Adjustments. The Board of Commissioners set those terms, whether it's 1 term, 2 terms, how many ever terms we decide.
Yes, sir.
So, thank you. Mr. McGinnis, I believe you have a question.
Yeah, just a real quick question. You covered the landfills, and I agree the landfill is under DEQ. DEQ regulates it, and that's our way of protecting ourselves. But the bioremediation and the McGill was another good example. They are not under DEQ, and they slipped in here under the wire. So, what precautions are built into the landfill, into the zoning document that protects us from that?
I'm not familiar what the McGill project is.
It's a composting company, but really
Okay.
it's a food company. They're going to be bringing in
Yeah.
Yeah, human waste in processing, sewer sludge is what it's called, in processing. It don't smell bad. And also the bioremediation on 109 is processing oil soaked, gas soaked, solids. So, my concern is, and this is my concern is that these people are lined up right now. Right now they know they gotta go through the commissioners to get in here. But with this zoning document, as soon as that zoning document is implemented, these guys are lined up to pounce. And do we have the time to stop that? And I don't think we do. Unless we can have a moratorium for about 4 months so that we can come back and make the modifications. But, and that's the only thing I can come up with is making a moratorium for about 3 months. But nonetheless, my fear is these guys are gonna pounce as soon as this document gets approved.
I have a question as well.
This is only a partial response, but there are more opportunities to get face to face with a developer of a facility like that in this forum once you have the zoning ordinance. Well, you've already got a zoning ordinance, but this one fills out things that were absent from the old ordinance, to give more opportunities for public input for you and for the elected commissioners.
Mr. Young, I have a question on that topic.
Yes, sir.
So, if there's a use that's not listed in our permitted use table, for instance, is that use automatically allowed?
It's automatically not allowed.
Not allowed. So if there's, because in other words, it's impossible to address every potential business or manufacturer on this permitted use table. So because it's not listed, they can't automatically come in here and open up. If it is listed, then they have the right if it's allowed in the zoning. But they're not automatically allowed if they're not listed, spelled out in this permitted uses. So if we, for chance, forgot one business that we didn't think about, they can't slip in and say, okay, you didn't say you can't, so we're going to.
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The flip side of that would be, just take the example of a small restaurant. A burger restaurant might be allowed by the zoning ordinance, and maybe it doesn't say a hot dog restaurant is allowed, but it's a fairly easy decision to say, okay, a hot dog shop is permitted because it's essentially the same. So if there are uses that are clearly very similar to another use in the ordinance, then the staff can apply that interpretation. There has to be a little bit of interpretation in the zoning ordinance, which it does permit. But beyond that, beyond being almost the same thing as something else that's already in there, then you're exactly what you said.
It's not allowed. Okay, thank you for that. I think we have one question, Ms. Laney.
Yes, I just wanted to go, you had said that in your experience, most zoning ordinances never stay exactly the same as they're presented. But you also mentioned, I think, that Waste Connections has made a contract that said they would not have any more landfills in Anson County. So I'm saying that if Waste Connections is saying that now, then there's no need for this to be on here right now. And we would be better off to take this off, and then later on, if there's a need to address it, then address it then, instead of having it on and try to take it off. There's just no need for the landfill designations in any residential areas or even light industrial areas, as you were speaking about the requirements of Waste Connections and ourselves at this time. It just doesn't need to be on there. I think we would be better as Anson County to take that off and revisit it later than to have to deal with it being a permitted use of residential land at this time.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Laney. Mr. Borgstead.
Yes, sir. You mentioned that non-landowners can apply for a zoning change. What's to keep me from applying for and forcing through a zoning change on a property, knowing that potential equals assessed value equals taxation, you know, make it have much more potential. This happened on 7th Street in East Austin to get all the houses out and turn it into mixed-use apartments. So what's the potential for that in this document? How does it defend against that?
It would depend on the zoning plan, I mean, the planning board, wouldn't it? For them to allow that.
It depends on, well, first of all, it cannot be forced. Because may
I address that?
Well, let me finish. What Mr. Forbes referred to, absolutely would apply. And the process, regardless of who applies for a zoning change, it's the same for everyone. It's a public process.
Right. When I say forced, first off, a lot of people here are thinking about the people in this room being, you know, in charge. I'm thinking about, 10 years from now, when the elected officials are different. Charlotte has moved in and settled in on the west side of Anson, and all these big city rules start coming up into this room. Things happen that the population supports that an individual doesn't, even if the individual owns the property. So what they would do is they would say, we need this development here, it would get changed to allow for it, and then the development would be announced. It all happened in back rooms. And this is what happens in these situations over time. You get people that are invested and they're in positions of power. I mean, Acuna, the city of Austin, one of their own employees sued. So, I'm worried about these things that I have seen happen everywhere else that zoning has been put in place.
I believe you have a legitimate point. Corruption is horrible, but without this zoning, you don't even need corruption. You just do it. You see what I mean? So I don't want to argue, but I don't want to keep going back and forth with. You can have gangsters come in here and force people to do things, and you can have people that buy people off and all stuff. But I didn't want you to think that that's what we're trying to do here.
Well, it's the unintended outcomes is the thing that I see. I mean, no one comes into zoning thinking that we're going to screw our children. Okay, and then the children don't have any place to do business. They're having to rent from someone, or they're having to, and it consolidates the power, it consolidates the money, and it happens over time. Some places it happens less than 5 years. Some it takes about 20. So by the time you see it coming, it's already hit you.
What you can do, what folks who live and work and own property and vote here can do is to be involved with the planning board, to be involved with the board of commissioners on the long range plans. A zoning ordinance, a zoning change has to be consistent with state law, of course. It also has to be consistent with the local comprehensive plan.
Right.
So be involved in those processes, and which lays out the future ground rules, and at the same time keep up month to month in things that are being proposed.
So, question kind of tangential, but is there a way to kind of front load all that to the planning, get people to actually say, I want to go this way, rather than having them show up to say, oh no, I don't want that?
That's what the comprehensive planning process does.
And if you have a citizens group that has a different idea and they come in and oppose everything every time,
these folks have to hear that and then respond.
Talk with you after, okay?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Borgstead. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to make it clear I am all for change, but it's just about, I want positive change, especially
Well, you have to have permission to drive, but we all get to drive. You have to get a driver's license, but we all get to drive. I don't think that a process of just going through permitting or approval in the process that would seem to want to promote what you're talking about rather than stifle it. I'm not sure if it's my place to. Go ahead, Chairman.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, go ahead.
Just in terms of comparing this to being able to drive in a driver's license is conducted in a way that's non-arbitrary, where it's consistent for every person. So what could happen in a system like this is it's up to the more parameters you have, it's up to discretion of a group of people. If it's allowable and it's something that is good, like seeds, like nursery, like landscaping and greenhouses, why are those things that have to be put within a parameter of, you know, let's get permission to do something that's already good?
The reason we have stipulations there is because in your mind, if you're going to open a greenhouse or you're going to open a seed sales, you're just going to be small. It's going to be family, private, rural business. If we don't spell that out, you could have the largest seed and fertilizer dealer right beside you that's creating 200 trucks a day coming in there, but we couldn't justify that, or we couldn't regulate that because we didn't spell it out.
I would understand that if you did the same thing like she mentioned about the landfill. If we're trying to regulate those things that are of special concern for the citizens, why don't we deal with those things now on the same level? If it's just that simple, then let's say landfills, let's get rid of them or not even have the option available for an RA5 residential community, rather than later saying, okay, let's deal with it, down the road. Deal with it now before, and then down the road, if there is something, you can add it back in. But deal with it now, saying, no, we do not permit that in our local community, because that's what you just said. It's something we're trying to deal with. And if it's something, be consistent with it. That's something definitely I want dealt with.
Yep. And we
And a landfill. If we're going to deal with the greenhouse, deal with the landfill.
we will absolutely deal with the landfill. That's why the landfill has a SA in front of it, because it's got to come to the commissioners for approval, or SB before the Board of Adjustment. We can deal with the landfill going in an RA at the very earliest once we adopt this plan. But if we don't adopt the plan, we'll never adopt the plan, because you have a concern tonight, I promise you. And then once we make that change, we've got to advertise this meeting for 30 more days. And I'll promise you there'll be another concern in 30 days that nobody wants us to adopt the plan because we got to make another change. And it's a never-ending cycle that we've been doing this for how long, Mr. Newton?
This whole project started in 2019.
So we have to start somewhere. And Mr. Young has spelled out tonight the process and how we will make the changes going forward. And we will address, I'll assure you, we will address the landfills going in RA districts. Yes, sir, Mr. Borston.
I'd just like to say that I've been reading this. It's very well written. It's very well written. So I'm satisfied, at least for the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Borston. That credit goes to Mr. Young. So, Mr. Little, I believe it was.
Yeah, we have 533 square miles in this county. Why would we not want a procedural-based protective policy like zoning that we can work through and that is future-oriented and constructive with all uses, and in favor of, or instead of, a categorical kind of situation where there are things like landfills or seeds or whatever that we completely just want to deny. We can't predict the future. How can we know now that a procedural process that we might adopt in countywide zoning would not serve us well in the future? Is there any evidence that we have from any municipality or jurisdiction in this country that says zoning is a bad thing and we shouldn't do it?
Well, we're the only county in central North Carolina that has no countywide zoning, and I don't see where it's done us a whole lot of good. When we got things that y'all are concerned about out there that came because we didn't have countywide zoning. And that kind of zeroes everybody in on us because we're the only place left that didn't have it in this area.
Yes, sir, Mr. Borgstead.
Just to say, the Cato Institute, Brookings, Pew Institute, there's an article on governing.com all about the negative impacts of zoning. It's why Joe Biden put out a grant to try and have a different way forward found. So there are a lot of case studies that do show that zoning has a negative outcome.
Thank you for that.
Exclusionary zoning, because there's form-based, there's Tokyo style that could be explored, but the question is raised.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Is there one more concern?
You know, we need to point out that we've had zoning in this county since 1975, when 7452 was zoned.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We've had zoning. It had no ill effect up until now. It's given us a voice on those particular points.
It didn't have an effect up until now, because McGill is here, the Val mediation is here, the landfill is here. And so, any zoning we had in the past either wasn't processed or it didn't work.
It was a government accepted program though, that where you're talking about the landfill, it was brought in, the county voted on it. Was it not voted on up there?
Yeah, the commissioners approved it, yes.
Decided
Yes.
at the time that this was best for the county.
Yes.
Whether it was or it wasn't, it's inconsequential. At least we had a voice. Without any voice, we have nothing.
You have nothing.
We're there, and we don't get protected against these businesses coming in and just setting up. It's not working. Not doing anything doesn't work. What we're asking for is for something that works.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Sykes.
To be told what we can and can't do with our land that we own and pay taxes on. I don't. I do not.
Collective control?
I do not. That's why I live where I live, because I do not want to be told, my wife wants a greenhouse, I can put her a greenhouse up. I shouldn't have to ask permission. I shouldn't have to come in here and get in front of the zoning board. If I want to take my bulldozer and knock down pine trees to give my youngins a shooting range, I shouldn't have to come in here and ask. In my opinion, it's my land. I bought it. I pay the taxes on it. I should be able to do what I want to do.
I think that's Mr. Lee. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Woodburn, you have a comment?
Oh, well, I was just going to give a little bit of history behind Mr. Sykes' comments there. Yes, zoning was done, and I thought it was 95. At any rate, the zoning that was put in place he's correct. It was along Highway 74 and Highway 52, because those were, at that time, were the main corridors through Anderson County. And what the planning board saw happening was, people were putting just whatever they felt like putting wherever they wanted to put it. And so it was determined that something was needed to make sure that certain types of businesses or residences or whatever went in certain places. So went through a process and adopted that zoning ordinance. And yes, the landfill was done after that, and the Board of Commissioners at that time felt like that's what Anderson County needed. Now, right, wrong, or indifferent, that's what the Board of Commissioners at that time felt like was needed. And a lot of them took a lot of heat for it, but they went through the process, did the public hearings, and did all of that, and we have the landfill in place. And as I alluded to earlier, we do have a contract with them, and they can't just go out and do what they feel like they want to do. Any changes to that contract has to come to the Board of Commissioners to be approved, and we have not approved everything that they've asked for. And I'll just add this from a personal note. The years that I've been sitting up here, I've seen all kinds of things that ended up coming to us because citizens had concerns, and when they came to us, it was too late. There was nothing that we could do about it, because there was nothing in place that to start the process. They had to go to anybody. We found out that people had spent money. They had invested in land, they had invested in permits and all of this. Then when the community finds out it's not acceptable for their area, then they will come to the commissioners to do something about it. But there was nothing we could do. But with zoning in place, it will be known up front, and the concerns and all can be answered at that time rather than after the fact. And that's kind of where I see the necessity for having zoning in place, because if you look at a map of North Carolina, and actually if you include South Carolina, we're the only county, and it stands out, that does not have zoning. So, you know, if I'm a business person anywhere in North Carolina, either outside of North Carolina, and I've got a business that I know is questionable, and I start looking at this map to say, where am I going to take my business? Anson County is the one I'm going to choose, because it shows that there's no zoning there. And that's why we need to get something in place. And, you know, from the day that it's adopted going forward, it will be a working process. You know, because it's not, once it's adopted, it's not set in concrete. There's a process that anybody that wants to do anything that doesn't fit in this zoning ordinance as it is can go through that process and request a change. And what I've seen in my years of dealing with the planning board is that, as a rule, unless it's something just way out of the ordinary, they're usually they're approved by the planning board. And if it is something out of the ordinary, then the planning board will refer it to the commissioners, and then we have to take a look at it. And that's kind of how the process works. And I just thought that was information that was needed.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner Woodburn. Okay. Yes, sir.
Isn't greenhouses like agricultural things? So.
I don't know.
So if a chicken house is exempt, shouldn't a greenhouse be exempt as well?
I don't know if our attorney can answer that. If
I could not hear the question, I apologize.
Oh, yeah.
our greenhouses, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm trying to hear.
Isn't greenhouses agricultural use? So like if a chicken house is allowed, how could a greenhouse be forbidden?
I don't know, I've never looked up the two different things, I'm not sure how they're classified.
Yeah, because the greenhouse isn't.
I'm just not sure how they're
isn't that
classified.
agricultural though?
There's an answer, I can find that out.
Yeah.
But I don't know what off the top of
I don't know if the state recognizes a greenhouse as a bona fide farm.
I don't know that.
We can look into that, but I don't know.
Is there a difference between hobbies and actual businesses and commercial enterprise?
Yes, sir.
So I would submit that cutting down trees and having a greenhouse and selling heirloom seeds and a number of these different activities are permitted as hobbies. If you grow them into a multinational enterprise, you might want to move.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that. Mr. Borgstead.
I'd just like to say that something I heard here a moment ago. The entrepreneur is one of the most reviled humans on the face of the planet. The capitalist even more so. We just got told if you are successful, GTFO. So that's going to come to every rural to commerce, or hey, I want to build a factory here and bring jobs. That's what's going to show up here. The people that want it, the people that need the jobs, they're not going to have the time. So you're going to have to make a major effort to actually go and reach out and get people in. Otherwise, the process isn't just arbitrary. It's unfair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did I understand this gentleman to say that anybody could request a zoning change?
Yes. Yes. It's a formal process that once you contact the zoning administrator, there's a process. You'll fill out an application, and it'll go through a process to come to a public hearing, and then it'll be voted on.
So if I don't like what my neighbor's doing, I can request a zoning change so he can't do what he's doing?
Yes.
don't know if that's 100% accurate.
The,
You're correct. Everybody gets to change.
Okay.
Tell everybody else what to do.
yes, sir.
But there is an application fee to make that change. I don't remember, I mean, is that?
I
if
think,
want to make a change, is it like 200?
I don't know what the fee is. I'd have to look through this 256 pages right here, but I think there was a fee associated with a rezoning. There's a rezoning fee.
The board sets the fee every year with the budget.
Okay. All right. Okay. Does that conclude our comment portion of? Yes. Okay.
I almost had a light bulb moment. Did I hear you say in conversation that if it's not in the zoning document, it can't be done?
If it's not spelled out in the permitted uses and it's not closely related to what is spelled out, like he gave the example, a burger joint and you want to open a hot dog stand, those are pretty closely related. But if you want to do something totally opposite of what's spelled out, no, it is not allowed in the permitted uses. It's not allowed in the zoning document. So, thank you. Okay, any other questions from the board? Comments? At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn or the public hearing. Close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion that we close the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Woodburn, second by Commissioner Gatewood. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, does anyone like to take action on the zoning draft that you have before you tonight?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the countywide zoning.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Gatewood, second by Commissioner Woodburn to approve the 2024 zoning ordinance that's been proposed. Any other discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Vote is unanimous. So, all right. So that concludes our public hearings for tonight. We'll move on to our the consent agenda. So this time I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as it's written.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Mims, second by Commissioner Gatewood. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We don't have any appearances for tonight, so that's going to bring us down to item 6, public addresses to the board. So, is Miss Laney? She's okay. Oh.
I just signed up in case, so I've said what I need to say tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm not going to read the public address portion. We'll move on down to item 9, manager's report.
Quick. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had 3 items on here. If you remember back several meetings ago when I believe the discussion was being held relative to the proposed flea market, there was a comment made to the board about creating, and it's kind of come up tonight, relative to the processes involved in the zoning ordinance, and the board at that time instructed me to look at creating a planning director position. I have done so, and the first item that you have is a job description for a Nancy County planning director, and some of the duties would be to be over things like the planning, the zoning, GIS, building and inspections department. I think some of the commissioners have already taken a look at how other counties in North Carolina particularly process and what kind of departments they have, so I think this is very consistent with the general practice in the state of North Carolina.
Okay. Are there any questions for the manager on the planning director position?
Just, and I think it's a misprint on the first page of the job description down near the bottom in duties and responsibilities. It's the reviews and signs. And it says plants. Is that plants or plans?
It should be plans.
Plans.
So that is that T should not be there.
Thank you.
That's a good eye, Mr. Woodward.
Read the stuff.
Okay. Any other discussion on the planning director?
Just a couple of questions, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you for recognizing me. Who does the planning director report to?
If you approve this position and the contents in it, that position will report directly to the county manager, which is me. Right.
Thank you. And the second question, where will the position be officed?
Right now, if I'm not mistaken, in this building, there is an office that's next to our tax administrators on the first floor, and that is a potential. If we needed to, of course, obviously, the building inspections folks are now housed at the county annex on South 52. Once our axe folks get moved out, that will free up some additional space, so there's a possibility there. You could have an entire planning department that would be accessible to everybody with plenty of parking.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I like that idea, Mr. Manager.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay.
I would make the motion, Mr. Chairman, that we approve the planning director position.
Second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Woodburn, second by Commissioner Gatewood and Commissioner Mims to approve the planning director position as outlined in your packet. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
The second one, usually I get asked a question about the 74 East sewer line extension that's going on. And as of just a few days ago, my report from LKC, the engineering firm, is that they had at that time installed some 1,150 feet, and there's just a couple of days later, so I'm sure they've installed some others. Most of the deep manholes, if you will, have been installed, and so it should be an easier go from here on out. They have pulled off the last few days as well because of that one sewer line leak that we had. So it was fortunate that Columbus Utilities, if you will, that they were on the job for another project and were able to get them to switch over quickly. So they are in the process of getting that project finalized. But they will be back on the job for the 74 East gravity sewer line extension within days.
Okay. Thank you for that update.
Yes, sir. And the last one is more pleasant one, because I think each of you knows, as we have talked last week with the finance director and in your meeting and with her and me, you pointed out that one of our goals and objectives that had been appointed is that completing the audit processes for the county, and that FY23 audit is on the calendar for May the 21st to be presented to you by Alan Thompson of Thompson, Price, Scott and Adams, which is our independent audit firm. So that will catch us up, hopefully put us in better shape with the LGC. Also at that same meeting, I had a request from the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, Ms. Jonna Sharp, to be able to stand in with Alan Thompson in that presentation, because what they would like to do is right afterwards is get started on our FY24, and of course we're still in that FY24 fiscal year, which ends June 30. So we're hoping to get that one done no later than December 31 of this year.
Okay. Thank you. That's good news, and that's early. So we had projected June having that completed. So
very good news.
Yes. Thank you for that. Okay. Now we'll move down to the chairman's report, and just a couple things I want to make the commissioners aware of. Just basically reminders of upcoming events. The Anson County, the high school district graduation ceremony is going to be held Friday, May 29th at the high school stadium. If Ms. Cannon's not reached out to you, you need RSVP for that if you plan to attend. Again, that's May 29th. South Piedmont Community College will be holding their graduation ceremony on Saturday, May the 11th. It'll be held at the Old Charlotte Highway campus in Monroe. Again, reach out to Ms. Cannon for an RSVP to that. On Thursday, May the 16th at 11 a.m., there's going to be a bridge dedication ceremony. I know Commissioner Woodburn initiated it. Commissioner Bricken followed up on it, and I think with the help of Ms. Cannon, there was a lot of hands in it to get all this together. But they will be dedicating a bridge in honor of the late Sheriff Landrick Reed. That's Thursday, May 16th at 11 a.m. Be held at the South Piedmont campus in Polkton, the Garibaldi building. Also coming up on Thursday, May the 9th at 2 p.m., there is the informational meeting about the Wadesboro bypass. It's going to start out with the local officials at 2 p.m. Right after that, at 4 p.m., it'll be a public open house for the citizens to attend. It's a drop-in style. You come and just hear the information provided dealing with the Wadesboro bypass. That's on Thursday, May the 9th, and it'll be held at the Lockhart Taylor Center right here in Wadesboro. And then last, on Monday, May the 13th at 11 a.m., the Anson County School System will be holding a groundbreaking ceremony for the new middle school that they're starting. It'll be held on Anson High School Road at the new facility. Again, Monday, May 13th at 11 a.m. So that's all I have for the chairman's report. So this time we'll move to commissioner concerns.
I have a concern.
Yes, Commissioner Mims.
I would like to make a motion that we move to electronic agenda packages, moving with the Surface Pros that we talked about years ago before we had the hack, and that it'll do away with delivering packages to the commissioners unless a commissioner still wants a package delivered.
Okay, so you want to start electronic agenda packets being sent out to all the commissioners?
Yes, sir.
Via computer, tablet, provided by the county to the commissioners?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Would you like to put that in a form of a motion? Or
Here's my motion.
I second that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Mims, second by Commissioner Gatewood to move to an electronic agenda packet, providing each commissioner with a computer or tablet. Any discussion?
Just for informational purposes, and I'm glad this is coming up because it's been brought up this past several years, but just a little background information. Some of the things that will have to happen is we as a county would have to request, I guess, proposals from companies that supply that information, that do that, and we use it at the community college. And once you do that, then we'll have to select a vendor, and then they'll provide the software, and then they'll actually come in and train us as commissioners, the county manager and staff, and as well as the clerk. And basically what it does, and it's really good because it eliminates the paper. And everything that we get on paper and what's online now will be made available, and you can do it one of two ways. And at the college, what we do is we use our own hardware, and it's out there, and you have a sign-on, and you go in and you sign on, and you pull up your meeting agendas, and you can look at what you're currently doing as well as anything that's happened in the past. And like I said, it's really convenient, and it does away with having to keep up with stacks of paper. And I'm sure the clerk would still be the one overseeing this, and it will work basically as it does now. It's just that this information will be out there, but that's kind of, in a nutshell, the process that we would need to go through to get there. And I think it's actually a great suggestion, and we do need to move forward.
Okay, thank you for that. As I'm sure between the manager and the clerk, we will get that process started on selecting a vendor and get that underway. So, any other discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And definitely the IT people would be involved.
Yes. So, all right, thank you. Any other, are there any other commissioner concerns? Yes, Commissioner Whittemore.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to put this out there, and hopefully I've got it correct. I was approached by Apostle Chambers, he came to us some months back last year. The land adjoining his property that he has, it actually belonged to the county, and we indicated that we didn't want it, so we gave it back to the school board for them to dispose of. But as I understand from him, and he's been approaching them, going to them and making requests to purchase this property, or if they would donate it to him for a nominal fee to do that. and he hadn't had any success. And somewhere in that process, and I don't know, I think he's had a meeting with the manager and the county attorney, and what he has said needs to happen now, and he has indicated to me, and I'm not sure because I've not talked to anybody on the school board or the superintendent, is that the property could come back to the county, and then we would, and I don't know why this has to happen, because basically I'm thinking the school board can do the same thing that we would do. Just say, for example, if we got it back, then we could auction it off to the public and sell it at the highest bidder, which, you know, if he gets it, he gets it. If he doesn't, that's fine, but we will have done that. And I don't know if either the manager or the attorney wants to share anything on that or not, but that's kind of something I wanted to make the board aware of.
We have spoken with him, and I've spoken with him a couple times. It was my understanding that the school was going to offer that up to sell it. If they're not, if they want to give it back, if the board wants to receive it back, I'll be glad to negotiate that with the board or with the school board to get it back. But we cannot give, and I've made it clear to him, and he understands, we can't give it specifically to him.
Right.
We can auction it.
I've told him
or
that.
Sell it. There's several different ways we can sell it, but it can't be given to us.
Exactly. Yeah.
And he seems to be prepared for that. So,
which the school board can do the same thing, correct?
they can.
Yes,
and
they
that's
can.
why
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
know that they're willing to do it. I don't know what they want to do. You give me some direction on what if you want me to seek what they want, or if they want to give it back to the county and then let us deal with it. You let me know.
What I'd like to do is, if it's okay with the board, is have the manager and the attorney get with the superintendent and if they need to, the school board, and just kind of find out the ins and outs, and you know, whatever is the best way to handle it, just move forward with it. This thing's been going on now for a while. So
yes, sir. Yep. If you'll follow up on that.
Glad to do it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just a point of information, I'll be attending the Central Carolina Board of Delegates meeting on tomorrow evening, and then on May the 17th and 18th, I'll be attending the NCACC Board of Directors meeting, which will be down near in the Wilmington area. Let me see. Also, just a question for the manager. This is something that I've come across is, you know, we've gotten ARPA funding, and I'm not sure the status of that, but I think before the end of the fiscal year, and correct me if I'm wrong, we need to have a public hearing and invite all the municipalities in the county to that public hearing.
I'm not sure if it's the ARPA you're referring to, or is it the opioid settlement monies?
One of them, I think I saw ARPA, but it could be opioid. But what I was concerned about, I'm thinking we have to have the public hearing before the end of the fiscal year. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've actually had one already a year ago, and I've talked to Rodney Diggs, who's the chairman of our opioid settlement committee, and we have, matter of fact, our county clerk, when I talked to her about it, she sent out an invitation. We have a meeting later this month on the opioid settlement at the Emergency Management Center, as I call it, or Emergency Services Center, as a lot of people call it. And they're invited to that. That's usually at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
And so she's already sent that invitation out to them. And so that's the requirement, is because I checked it out in the past, and there's no requirement that it's really a public hearing. You just have to invite the towns located within the county, and we've done that.
Right, yeah. For some reason, the ARPA's jumping out. I mean, let me go back and look and see if I can find that, and if it is, I'll let you know.
If it is ARPA, please let me know.
Yes, sir. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, too. One item I want to bring up and get some clarity on how the board would like to proceed. There's been some citizen concern on our voting method as commissioners. I think we have a little bit of trouble with our audio live stream, and so some citizens are concerned that they're not able to hear who's voted for what, and so they request that we vote by show of hands. I don't know what the board's pleasure is, if we want to put a policy in place that we vote by show of hands, if we just want to adopt that's the formal procedure we're going to do from here on out. What's the board's I guess thoughts on that?
I'm good with it. I mean, having a show of hands, and especially for those that's online, that you know, with the system, with the situation we have with the system overall here lately is doing that. And actually, I would make that as a motion.
Okay.
And I would second that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion to hold all votes by show of hands here going forward. And so we have a motion by Commissioner Woodburn, second by Commissioner Gatewood. Any discussion on that?
At least in the beginning, as the chairman always remind us, because we may be in a bad habit, so just say, can we see that by a show of hands? And I think that'll help us. And I think it's a great idea.
Okay. So, all right, any other discussion on that? I'll just fill you in. So we got a motion on the floor and a second to vote by show of hands from here going forward. Some citizens have concerns about the audio and live stream not being able to hear. So
Not a problem.
okay. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you for showing your hand. So, okay, motion passes, Ms. Cannon. Okay, any other commissioner concerns at this time?
Oh yeah, and it's not a concern, but just a point of information too. There's a couple of things as far as I know the Association of County Commissioners, their legislative goals process is getting ready to start. So that's something that we need to look at. The current legislative goals online, and if we have anything that we like to see modified on the current goals, or if there's something we feel like would benefit Anson County and similar counties that we would like for them to take up, there's a process to get that started. But it's getting ready to kick off. I want to think it's either May or June.
Okay.
And the board of directors will be meeting between now and I think it'll be adopted and updated sometime this fall. I don't have the dates in mind right now, but that's just thought I'd throw it out there.
Okay. So, thank you for that update. Any other comments or concerns? Okay, hearing none. Do I have a need for a closed session tonight?
Sir, two motions.
Okay, so at this time, I'll entertain a motion to enter into closed session.
So moved.
I have a motion by Commissioner Mims, second by Commissioner Gatewood. All in favor, say aye. Raise your right hand.
Aye.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're back in open session. Any action we need to take in open session?
I make a motion, we go to option 3 on the salary for Clerk Cannon.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for option 3 on the salary, I don't know if you call it salary study, revolving around clerk position. I have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion. We have no second. So,
Can I make one since we don't have a second?
well, that motion will fail if there's no second. So. Okay. So, any other action needs to be taken?
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion to adjourn. We have a second?
Second.
Motion to adjourn by Commissioner Woodburn, second by Commissioner Gatewood. All in favor, say aye. Raise your right hand. Thank you.
Raise it high.